The state of Karnataka was hit very, very badly by the second wave of the coronavirus. And now, of course, we know that a third wave is in all probability on the way. The state has set up a committee to prepare for that third wave to make sure its impact is not too severe. And heading that committee, Dr. Devi Shetty, noted cardiac surgeon. Dr. Shetty, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
The first question, of course, is there any idea when the third wave is coming? When do you anticipate its impact being felt in the state?
I don't think anyone can predict, Maya, when the third wave is going to be, whether it is going to be as severe as the second wave, or whether children will be predominantly affected. No one has an idea. I think only thing what we can do is to prepare ourselves for the third wave, which could happen in September, October, or next year. And also prepare ourselves that it will be as bad or at least 30% worse than the second wave, because we should be prepared more for the worst scenario. And also we assume that children also will be affected. What percentage of children, nobody knows, but we should be prepared for children also getting infected. Because there is a lot of debate whether children are going to be affected or not. I wish and pray to God children are spared, but what if they get infected? So essentially we should be prepared for the worst possible scenario and hope for the best possible scenario.
Best to over-prepare indeed, especially if children are involved, as they very well may be. Yes, children are of course the focus of the preparation this time round.
Yes.
Now, one big difference, of course, as we head into the potential third wave, is vaccination. Vaccination has started on a wide scale. How would you describe the role that vaccination would play, really, in preparation ahead of this third wave? What is the role of vaccination? How important is it?
Today, we have an option to convert the entire third wave into a dreadful COVID third wave as a COVID third wave of common cold. I'm a bit exaggerating saying that it will be like a common cold, but it will be slightly more than common cold. But we now know, again and again, all the trials conducted across the world, that people who are vaccinated, very, very strong possibility they will not land in ICU, or they may not even need oxygen. So that is a very, very gratifying solution we have. But the question is whether we will be able to vaccinate adequate number of people before the third wave. Now, everyone thinks that the availability of the vaccine is the problem and government may not be able to provide the vaccine. I can tell you that our government will be able to provide the vaccine within the next few months when it is required for vaccinating everybody. But I can tell you the greatest stumbling block is not going to be the availability of vaccine. It is going to be the reluctance of the people to get vaccinated. In the main media, you read about there is a long queue for the vaccine and people are driving from big cities to the villages for vaccine. I can tell you my experience. I am sitting now in Electronic City hospital near Electronic City, where it's the most expensive real estate. Rich people with lot of knowledge live here. Every day we advertise for 600 slots for vaccination. Do you know how many people come? Not even 150 people. And this is happening in the area where most educated people live. You can just imagine what is going to happen in rural India. So vaccine hesitancy is a big problem. Now we are not talking about it because not that many vaccines are available. We are not campaigning for vaccine. When vaccine becomes available, it will become available. You will notice that is going to be a problem, and that is going to be 1,000 times more difficult than addressing the problem of acquiring vaccine. And we now have an opportunity to address it.
That is really very interesting because, as you said, we tend to talk about, is there enough vaccine? Will the vaccine be sufficient? Will it run out? But vaccine hesitancy really huge problem indeed. And as you said, in the rural areas as well. How can we go about addressing this? Is it through mass media? Is it through messages? How do we try and persuade people that getting the vaccination is for their own good?
Maya, what we have to do is workplaces. People who are vaccinated should be allowed to work together. If they are not vaccinated, they should work from home. Any public places, shops or shopping malls or the hotels, people who are vaccinated should be allowed, and others should be having a separate space. And airlines, today they are asking for a COVID certificate, COVID test certificate. They should say that you can produce a COVID test certificate or a vaccination certificate. You have a vaccination certificate, you do not need the COVID test certificate. Who wants to poke themselves every week for the COVID test? It's a very painful thing. You may rather get yourself vaccinated. So if we bring out all these regulations, believe me, vaccine will get accepted, and once it reaches a critical point, others will automatically embrace vaccination. That is the only way. We have no other way.
To ensure that people are vaccinated, make sure they don't really have access to all of the facilities of the vaccinated if they don't take their vaccine, so their own safety and the safety of those around them. Absolutely. Yes. The other big question, of course, which I know may be difficult to answer, are all vaccines equal? Is it fine to take any of the vaccines that are available in India?
You will know how effective each vaccine is after 2 years or 3 years. There is no way of knowing. We can claim all kinds of the figures, but only time will tell. And we should assume that all the vaccines are the same as long as they are recognized in your own country. All the vaccines are the same. Whatever vaccine you can get it, please take it.
Now, Karnataka has cancelled the second PUC exams, but it is going ahead with the SSLC exams and also the CET exams. As somebody who's really preparing for the third wave and saying that the young may possibly be vulnerable, what are your thoughts on examinations being held in the state at this stage?
Maya, the most important examination for the country is the NEET postgraduate examination for the NEET PG for PG seats. That is the most important examination according to me. I'll tell you why. There are over 180,000 young doctors who have finished their internship, fully qualified doctors, today staying at home, mugging the multiple choice questions, preparing for the exam. They're not taking care of COVID patients. My suggestion is, and they are supposed to take the exam in September. And one of the prediction, the models what our government follows, predicts that the third wave could be in September. So we may not be able to hold the exam. Now, if you give them 1 month notice, we have to give them 1 month notice for these doctors and conduct the exam at the earliest possible time. Declare the results. It's a digitized exam. Declare the results. 35,000 doctors will get the PG seat. And 35,000 doctors will straight away join the fight against COVID when it is required. Now, 140,000 doctors will fail to get the PG seat. If we tell them that we will give you a grace marks if you work in a government hospital as a temporary employee with the salary for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year till the COVID is recedes. Give you the grace mark giving is not new. For rural service, we give grace marks. So if you can give them a grace mark or work in government hospital, not private hospital, as an employee of the government, but temporary, and you have the documentation, nobody can lie. We will have more than 120,000, 130,000 young doctors to fight the COVID. If God forbid COVID third wave becomes worse than the second wave or as bad as second wave, the greatest problem we are going to have is doctors and nurses. The same doctors who have been fighting this battle for more than 1.5 years, they are infected, they are tired, they are sick. We need to get young blood now to the fight. So this is the best way you can address this problem.
Karnataka, even in the way it's lifting lockdown restrictions, is doing it based on the positivity rate of each district. So it is trying to be careful there. Commercial activity, of course, shops, essential shops are open. They can stay open longer now. But of course, there are many others, like the malls, like cinemas, like gyms, places like that. Do you advise caution? It's always a very, very tough battle between lives and livelihoods. But do you advise taking it slower is better?
See, we cannot keep the establishments locked down forever. One day or other we have to open, and when we open, virus which is hiding will come back and get us. So, but there are certain things we can do. As I said, if we insist on vaccination certificate for people running shops, we have vaccination certificate for all the hawkers and anybody who's selling product, interacting with people. And also we practice safe distancing, mask, all these precautions. I think we have to open, and it is pointless keeping it shut. How long are you going to keep it shut? And today there is a solution. When we started the COVID battle 1.5 years ago, we were hopeless, we were helpless. Today there is vaccine. And we know that even the first dose of vaccine gives you so much of protection. So why don't we change the entire narrative from when to open the shops, when to do this? Why don't you say, when will we start finishing, vaccinating as many as people as possible? It is sad when there are 30,000, 50,000 vaccine in our refrigerator. Nobody is coming to the hospital to vaccinate. It is sad because we haven't yet, the people have seen their friends and relatives getting COVID, asymptomatic, no problem. They haven't visited the COVID ICU. If they visit the COVID ICU, the struggle of people on a ventilator, on high flow oxygen, and the complication they have even when they survive, then they will all run to take the vaccine. And this is the education we have to provide. I'm not trying to scare them. COVID is one of the worst disease to have. It is like a lottery. We don't know who's going to just walk out without any problem and who's going to be crippled. So this is something which we have to do very, very fast.
You spoke about people suffering in the ICU, and of course at the worst of the second wave, people found it difficult to even get ICU beds, to even get hospital beds. The number of beds has been increased, whether it comes to ICUs, modular ICUs, or even other hospital beds as well. COVID care centers were set up with cumulatively thousands of beds. Now, of course, with the cases coming down, how do you suggest it's managed ahead of the third wave, since you did say we should prepare for the worst while we hope for the best? Should the beds be shut down, or should the facilities stay open?
First thing is, Maya, everyone thinks that the bed can treat patients. We can create thousands of beds, no problem. But we need a dedicated nurse and a dedicated doctor to take care of the patient, which we have serious problem. So we have to address. There is no point in following the traditional means. We have to go for exceptional route during exceptional times. And we shouldn't be scared. It will set a precedence for reducing the medical education standard, nursing education. All this matters when we are alive. When we are dead, it doesn't matter. That is the first thing. Second thing is, we have to get as many beds connected with the piped oxygen as possible. That only costs 10,000 rupees to convert a regular bed into a piped oxygen. It is pathetic to see people sitting in an auto rickshaw with the oxygen cylinder when there is no bed available in the hospital. It is sad. Now we have a window of opportunity. And secondly, we have to look at small hospitals. People think that it is the big hospital with 300, 500 beds are the ones who take care of the real COVID patients. That is not the case. Most of the people with COVID are cared by 30 bed, 50 bed, 100 bed hospitals across the city and across the country. And they hardly have 5 beds, 10 bed with oxygen facility because the healthcare didn't need that. Now we have to look at how do we get all those hospitals to invest on converting their existing bed as an oxygen bed. Do you know how much it costs? It costs just 10,000 rupees for a regular bed to be converted like oxygen beds. Now, Reserve Bank of India is giving a loan, I think, for about 4% interest for the hospital to upgrade the facility. So if the state government, if the private hospital says, I would like to connect 50 of my beds into a oxygen bed, they borrow the money and they have to hardly pay interest of about 75,000 rupees for converting 50 additional beds with oxygen. And state can give some subsidy out of that, provided the hospital agrees to see the government referred patients. Then we'll have enough oxygen. And it costs less than 90 crore rupees to set up an oxygen plant for a city which can give 100 metric tons of oxygen every day. Now, it may be a bit slow or it may be a bit late for the current wave, but for the future, we need to look at every 18 cities in India. If you can make them oxygen independent, believe me, there will not be lockdown. Because lockdown will happen if the medical infrastructure is overwhelmed and the doctors raise their hand and say, we cannot, we can't, we don't have a bed. That is an indication of lockdown. If we can provide all this infrastructure, economic activity will go on, people will get treated, and then we can manage things much better.
These are really very practical suggestions and not overwhelmingly expensive also. This is really a very, very practical way of looking at things in preparation, as you said, for the worst. Now, the third way, you're heading this committee to look at it for Karnataka. You've spoken about the importance of vaccination, the importance of stepping up the number of oxygenated beds, the importance also of getting trained medical people in, the doctors and nurses, even if they haven't finished all of the required exams, but they need to in this emergency situation. What else would you say to the people of Karnataka and of India as we look at the potential third wave ahead? What can we do as individuals to make sure that it is not as disastrous as the second wave has been?
Every Indian should think that the fight against COVID is not the government's problem alone. It is the community's problem. Community should come forward and say that we have equal responsibility in ensuring that the country becomes COVID-free like the government. I'll give a simple example. Bangalore has only 21% of our people living in slums. And these people, the urban poor, their problem is much, much worse than a rural poor today. Last 1 year, all the maids have lost their jobs. Everyone working in hotels have lost their jobs. Drivers have lost their jobs. If they have to pay money to buy the vaccine, it's going to be expensive. And obviously, the government hospital where vaccination is available, there is a long queue. So if all of us have our own sphere of influence and people serving us, I have many drivers, I have many maids, I have people coming to my house and cleaning them. If every housewife thinks that she has to encourage her maid and the family to get vaccinated, and if they have a financial problem, she can give them some financial help. Now, it does two things. One is, when the housewife says, I am vaccinated, my husband is vaccinated, my children are vaccinated, that is why we are confident, we are protected. You also do this and you have a financial problem, I'm going to help you. That is the best way to convince rather than any other campaigning material. If all the people running companies say that, okay, we would like all our employees to get vaccinated and their family, and you'll be shocked, surprised, we have 20,000 crore rupees of CSR budget for the year coming. With that money, huge number of people can be vaccinated, because I can tell you to vaccinate about say 50 crore people, it will only cost about 70,000 crore rupees and 20,000 crore rupees available in CSR budget. So we have to look at tapping each and every resource to encourage as many people get vaccinated and also try to help them to get vaccinated. If just 20% of Bangalore population think that when they get vaccinated, they would like somebody else to get vaccinated. I just want to let you know, Maya, when they come to my hospital in Bangalore, they only pay 630 rupees for vaccination from Covishield. And that is what we pay to Covishield company to give us the vaccine. We don't charge any extra charges, but we request all of them that we are not charging our service free, but please pay for one more poor person's vaccination. And we have already vaccinated few thousand people with the contribution coming from people who are happy with the service. And it is not a rocket science. COVID is the community problem. Community has to own it and work towards it.
The city of Bengaluru is starting a massive vaccination program. It is ongoing. They're trying to vaccinate more than 3 million people, more than 30 lakh people in the next month up ahead there. The BBMP and private companies are trying to actually head to slums, to factories, garment factories, going to disadvantaged groups as well. This, I guess, would really make a big difference, especially since it is really a public-private pandemic partnership. The role of the private sector is huge, really, in this. How much contribution can the private sector make in this entire endeavor?
Bangalore is very unique in the sense we have large number of big establishments who are extremely socially conscious from the very beginning. And the culture of the city is such that when there is a crisis, they all come together. And I believe that Bangalore will be able to show to rest of the country a model where with the community effort, we will be able to maximize, vaccinate the maximum number of people. I am very happy with the way community has come forward. Government is working with the citizens, very always welcoming suggestions from the community and working closely with the government. So we have a very proactive government. I am confident that we will be able to reach our target.
Thank you very much, Dr. Devi Sethi. You've got a challenging few months or weeks ahead of you as you lead the team preparing really for the third wave in Kadasta. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Maya. Thank you. Most grateful. I enjoyed this entire recording. Thank you so much.